And hi, I am Tammy.
Hi, I'm Michelle.
And tonight we have some great guests. We have the band Sin and Seraphim. We also have Jennifer Cunningham. She's doing an FX model.
And tonight we also have Skara from Horror Web and Brenda.
And after that, we will have a contortionist with a snake.
And we also have Saul Ravencraft to tell us some spooky stories.
So remember, Austin, when you're out and about, we see you. And who do we have?
Hey, we're over here with Saul Ravencraft, and he has brought some goodies to tell us about tonight.
I have. I'm so glad to be here tonight.
Creepy goodies. It's wonderful to have you.
So, you always like to see some of the artifacts when we come out. Last time I brought the Sansa, the shrunken head, and some of that sort of thing. Tonight, since we're getting into the point where the veil becomes thin, I'm doing a lot more spirit sessions right now as part of the season. I thought I'd keep everything more to the spirit side of things.
Which you actually do paranormal investigations. You're a man of
Less
many.
on the side of investigation. I'm not so much a gadget guy. I think that all of us are equipped to connect with spirit, that we're intended to have these sorts of connections, but we're not taught that anymore. We don't try that
Kind of like an
anymore.
intuitive.
So I'm old school, and when we do spirit sessions, it's not me sitting there tied to a chair going, trying to reach out. We put things into your hands. In fact, this is something that we do quite a bit of. I'll let you take a look at that. That's an example of what we call automatic writing. The pad is clipped at each end, has blank paper on there. Everybody has a pencil. We pass it around, and have people make a few blind marks on it. And then afterwards, we see what comes up. And letters will show up. Sometimes symbols will show up. In one session that we had, several different people together drew a very stylized drawing of a Victorian man in a top hat.
Oh, wow.
It was
And
just
then
sort of an outline.
each
like a
person
New
could
Yorker
see a
cartoon.
different thing too.
Right.
So,
And
because like I could see a turtle there. I don't know why, but I see a turtle.
okay, I can see that as
You
well.
can see a cat's tail.
I can see that as well.
It's up in the corner.
So we have everyone participate in the automatic writing. We see what comes together at that point. Sometimes things line up with what was going on. You'll notice a number here. I number each one as we pass it out so that we have an idea about where in the session it occurred and what order it occurred.
Nice.
And sometimes we have things align to what was going on. Here's something that you can play with here. I'll let you each feel this.
What is this?
Just touch it and see what you feel. We'll do this as an experiment of intuition, of psychometry. If you can't be wrong on this. So whatever emotion you feel, whatever comes to mind. Don't worry about guessing what it is, but what is it that you feel from it? Tammy have a chance as well. Maybe an emotion that occurs to you, an idea that occurs to you.
I think it's something like fun.
Reminiscence?
Like my grandma's old bright. She had an old bright iron bed. It reminds me of the springs.
Reminds you of your grandma. Nice, nice. What are you feeling from this?
I'm feeling like when I was in West Virginia and I found stuff in the dirt. No, I mean, I lived on a land that my mother and her siblings were raised on. So I got to go there and live for 1.5 years. So it was really interesting to dig up what they left behind.
Sure.
And so something like this could remind me, of something.
Well, these
Something
are bed
old?
springs, and they came from the chicken ranch in LaGrange, Texas.
Okay, I wonder what happened with those springs.
I think my favorite one with that's one of the artifacts I will let people feel to see what emotion, because I think they do have a lot of vibration to them that anyone can pick up on, but they are not they're not aggressive or anything like that. They're actually a very pleasant feeling. My favorite one was a while back. I had someone feel them, and she said, "It feels like work needs to be done." Good luck with that.
Yeah.
What catches your attention over here? What would you like to see
Of course,
closer?
the doll catches my attention.
The doll. So this, I'm not going to pass her around because she is rather fragile, but she is an example of things that come to me. From time to time, I will have people who have something that is in their home, their business, or something like that, that has just gotten a little too weird. And this actually was at an antique store. And the person who had it felt like there was a weird vibration going on. There was some bizarre things happening in the shop, and they really wanted it out of there. And so I was asked to keep her safe.
Just
I've
the
done a little
history.
research on the style of the doll. She comes from about the 1930s.
I was going to say, it's a lot of history in
She's
that.
almost an antique, but not quite. And as you can see, she looks like she's been played with.
Oh, yeah.
And some people have dolls that are meant to sit on the shelf. Some people have dolls that are intended to be loved. And I feel like this doll has been lonely. So I actually bring her out at every opportunity that I can so that she has the chance to be around people, be around things that are going on, not locked up.
But when you actually think
alone.
about probably her past, the children that have played with her, everything that she's seen.
And then she ended up in a dusty old antique shop. Of course she was acting out. So she's been a good thing. And actually, in spirit sessions and trying to make connection, dolls have been used, especially in trying to connect with child spirits, to try and give them a reason to come and connect. The same way you think of a psychologist using a doll to give a child an opportunity to talk and express. Mediums have done the same thing. And not just mediums, anyone can try to connect with spirits. You don't need to have special powers. It's not a comic book.
There's a lot of love probably doted on her.
Oh, yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
so she's going to hold on to that through the years.
And we try to continue there.
So what's with the bell?
The
I'm
bell.
curious.
So the original communication with spirits that people know about, it's gone on for forever, right? People have always reached out to spirits. But what we think of as modern spiritualism began with the Fox sisters in the late 40s in Hyattsville, New York. And what happened for them was they would try and reach out and communicate with what was in their home. One of them would play a game. And you would say, Mr. Splitfoot, listen. And she would knock on the table. And a moment later, a knock was heard,
Repeatedly.
imitating what she had done. And one can only imagine what passed through her Methodist mother's mind
Are
at
they
that
the
point.
girls that also use their bed? They would use their bed for the
Yes,
tapping?
yes. Fascinating history.
I've
And
read about
they
them.
were
They're
the
really
first
neat.
ones that gave this idea, the connection with spirit. You didn't have to be a priest or anointed or anything like that. Anyone had the possibility of connecting. So the knocks were one way. Any way that you could make noise. So if we could get the spirit to ring the bell, we have a lovely old desk bell here. I have had that ring once during a
Imagine the
session.
chills you would get if it's
my
quiet and that goes off.
And what was odd, this was, I'm doing a session in Houston with the Houston Ghost Tour folk, and we used the bell, and I misplaced it. I couldn't find it. And at one point during the session, we heard it ring from across the room,
Just went off.
and it was just one ring. But that certainly got everyone's attention. That was a very memorable moment. But here's another example
Let you know where it was.
of sound. This is, I'm going to be careful because of the studio floor here, but this is a crystal glass suspended from a stick. And the spirits will tap on this glass. I don't know if the microphone picks up the ring there, but sometimes you will hear the tiny little taps of spirit on the glass. I have one that I can let you hold. This is another old piece. This is called a spirit horn. It goes from the ear horns, and when you hold it to your ear, you can see Yeah, you can see. You can hear
See.
the difference in the sound. I mean, it really picks up the sound incredibly well, amplifies
You
it.
can hear even just the breeze of the air
Right, right.
conditioning.
And if we were in a room
like-
that wasn't draped like a studio, you would hear my voice bouncing off the wall. It really amplifies incredibly. And this comes from the ear horn that people would use back before the days of hearing aids. And people figured, well, if this will help Uncle Al hear, then maybe it will help us to hear the quiet whispers of spirit. Now, in some stories, they say that these spirit horns would actually lift themselves up off the table and float around the room and speak to people in recognizable voices.
Now, I would love to be in a
Mine
room
have
like
not
that.
done that yet. But never say never. Never say never. I'm always open to that.
I know when we used to do investigations, we would use the flashlight a lot.
I don't have any with me. I have them in my kit, but we use those. I put them near the spirit horn. We have a station set up for bibliomancy, for communication with books. I have the works of William Shakespeare. I have a Bible, and we have a light over next to that. And in Houston, the spirits in this particular building seem to really like the bibliomancy. This last time it went off many, many times. And we had a little light there next to the spirit horn, the books, different areas that might draw focus. And the light would go off next to the books, and I would say, somebody go, go. And whoever felt right would jump up, they'd pick the book, and they'd read a passage. A few times there were some very strange, spooky passages that were read. We also worked with a candle. I assumed that I couldn't light a candle here in the studio, but apparently I was wrong. But we used a candle to communicate. We had a fascinating session with a candle where we got the candle to show us yes, and it blazed up. And then we got the candle to show us no, and it sort of leaned and flickered. And we spent the next 10, 15 minutes asking questions. According to the candle, there were 12 spirits amongst us, and it answered questions for multiple people.
That's interesting.
And the spirits are with us all year round. People only think about it around Halloween, but spirit sessions can be done at any time.
Or 3 a.m. in the morning.
Well, or
That's
at
where the
3
most
in the
active.
afternoon.
It
There
could be any
really
time.
are no rules about it. It's really about our own perceptions and about when we are most comfortable. I'm a magical practitioner, and I'll tell people, you don't have to have the magic shoes. Right? You could just manifest, right? But some days the magic shoes help. And it's the same with the spirit sessions, that sometimes creating that context and putting ourselves in a mode where we have heightened awareness, where we're feeling just a little on edge there, puts us a lot closer to being able to do the communication. We aren't doing dark sessions, we're doing red light sessions, where we extinguish all of the normal light and everything is red light. You can still see, but it is that point where your vision is heightened.
You're like in a black room when you're developing
Right.
film.
And one other interesting thing, the studio that we're working with in Houston, it's a dance studio. Now normally I cover mirrors when I do a session because mirrors are doorways. And this studio has got this big giant mirror on one side of the wall because it's a dance studio.
Right.
And I don't have anything big enough to drape that. So we just had to fly casual
See what happens.
on this one. And one of the interesting things that happened was someone noticed that in one corner of the room, in the mirror, they could see movement in that corner. Someone sitting there said he felt movement in that corner. But when you looked at it directly, you didn't see anything happening. It was only reflected in the mirror.
It can be like a black shadow or something.
Right.
Now, of course, music.
So
I wanted to
I
see
don't
how
use
you
this
use
for
it.
music. This is actually not an old radio. It's a more modern radio. I think it's got a cassette deck in the side of it or something like that. But it is an old school radio, analog, and we'll plug that in and we'll tune it to a non-station. So you just get on a TV. I
Do you
think
usually
of it as
do
the
like
Carol Ann
on
channel.
AM, like put it on AM?
AM will
microphone
work,
to the
sometimes
spirit.
FM. It really depends on the area, but I'll get one where we're getting a good amount of static. and not bleed over from a station.
So it gives them an open.
And that when you're doing a session like this, you tell the spirits different ways they communicate with you. You can ring one of these bells. You can set off one of these lights to tell us you want to communicate. You can talk through this radio by adjusting the signals. And the more you do something in an area, and the more you get to know the spirits in that area, the more your group works together, the easier you find that you can connect. When we first did our session in this place in Houston, they had done one a little bit before me, and they got nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was interesting to work with the tools, but nothing. I came in, and we got a little bit. The bell went off, which was dramatic. But outside of that, not a whole lot of activity. And this time we got more. On Friday, we're doing another one, and I'm looking forward to more.
And where is this at?
It's at Houston. It's in conjunction with the Houston Ghost Tour. But I have all the stuff I'm doing on my Facebook page. I'm an old guy. I use Facebook.
Facebook. And just with Saul Ravencraft.
Saul Ravencraft is not hard to find.
No.
That's an
There's
easy
not many
name to
Saul
find.
Ravencraft.
I also have my Vault of Horror, which is coming up soon. We do a monthly hosted horror movie. This month, we are going to celebrate an underrated film that I think just doesn't get enough attention. We're going to watch Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch. And we're going to
And
have
where's
a
this
mask
gonna be at?
contest. That's at Mr. Tramp's.
Mr. Tramps.
It's always the second Monday of the month. I'm kind of with Brenda. I like to go old school on my movies. Most of what I show is before 2000, and we've watched White Zombie with Bela Lugosi, and we've watched stuff out of the 80s and just all over the place. It's stuff that I like.
Old school.
You
Old school is
bet.
good.
And I'm also involved with the Geekgasm Chamber of Sequins, their Harry Potter burlesque they're doing at Kick Butt Cafe. We're going to be doing a little the Jellimancy and some of that
I've
sort of
been
thing.
to one of your burlesque shows at, I think it was at Sherlock's.
It
Yeah.
used to be at Sherlock's.
And
yeah,
it used
before.
to be at Sherlock's, and you guys did like a radio talk show.
We did.
Like a story, like a ghost story.
We
on the
did radio
and it
drama.
was
We're looking to do
awesome.
some of that sort of thing again. I wrote a couple of those dramas based around things that I already do. The Ravencraft's Cabinet of Curiosities. I wrote two of those. One was called Headhunter. And I don't remember the title of the other one, but it was about, it was a sort of Chicago gangster kind of thing
And they steal
where people stole something
box
from a
out of
museum
yeah,
that
I
they shouldn't have
remember that one.
stolen.
I remember that one. That was quite creepy.
That was, well, and it was fun to write because I had this moment. I don't know if either of you do writing, but when you do writing, you have moments where the story begins to write itself.
Just comes to
Something
you.
goes in direction. And I remember the scene where the two final guys were facing off. And I remember watching that scene write itself and that dialogue write
Oh,
itself. And
wow.
I was getting chills waiting to see what was going to happen next. It didn't end well.
Yeah, I know.
It didn't.
And speaking of Sherlock's, the first time I met you was at Sherlock's, and you did have the Ouija board out. And there was a bunch of us, and we would go up there like
Right.
2 at a time.
Right.
And it's different to see different energy. Different people could be there, and different energy could take place based upon the random selection that we
Exactly.
had.
And you got to see an idea about my own philosophies working with Ouija board. I get a lot of comments about Ouija boards. What about Ouija boards? Right? I hear they're evil. And I tell them it's like a screwdriver. It's a tool. You could use a screwdriver to tighten screws, or I can shove it in your eye. Right?
Yeah, they kind of use it as like a conduit or a door.
Yeah, it's a
kind of
technique
say.
for communicating. Instead of going, is it A, is it B, is it C?
It just-
Ding, okay, it's C, right? This is a little bit more solid, but you saw the techniques that I used. We got specific people to participate. We had them ground and shield themselves. Very important when you're doing any kind of spirit connection. We cast a circle. We brought those people inside the circle. We didn't just talk to anybody. we looked for specific people and entities that we wanted to connect with. We had change outs. Some people were on the board and I pulled them off and we changed that energy up. And I was the one that managed the session. If anything came through, if anything happened that was not fun anymore, we were done. Right? You don't just go in the closet and say, who wants to talk? That's like going out on 6th Street in your underwear and saying, who wants to take me home?
Everybody.
You'll get an answer. May not be who you're looking for.
Might not be what you want.
You may not know where you wake up.
So the Ouija board, like any sort of communication tool with spirit, it's what you put into it, and you have to do it on purpose, right? And if you do, then the Ouija board can be a powerful tool. If you mess around with it, you can put yourself in a world of hurt.
It's all about intention.
Exactly. Intention. Do it on purpose.
Okay, so I'm really curious with the boxes.
So the boxes, I'll let you take a look at those.
Since
This
they're
is
over
something that I
there.
don't really work with so much, but it is I like to collect some of these older artifacts. These are slates. So after people figured out the spirits could communicate with us a letter at a time, someone said, I wonder if they could write things for us. And so there are a couple of styles of spirit writing. There's the automatic writing, which is what we're doing. And then there is the idea of inviting spirits to make
they
their
actually
own marks. Yeah.
Have the chalk and they actually write
And
what they
you can
want
do
to
this with normal slates. When I've worked with it in the past, that's what I have used. This artifact was in that period of time where everyone was trying to prove things. I got nothing to prove. And
It's just fun.
So
It's
so the
fun to see.
idea, well, I think
Curiosity, I
I don't
guess.
think that you do have anything to prove. It's about the experience, right? If you're trying to prove something, then you get into all of this debate and argument. And what I've noticed is when you deal with spirit connection, when you deal with any sort of paranormal encounter, people say, I know what I saw. I know what I felt. I know what happened.
Unless you've experienced it
right?
yourself,
Once you experience it,
then you know.
So they
How do
would
these
lock
work?
a piece of chalk inside there. There's a slate surface there. And then they would close this box. See, I'm not touching it, right? And then they would extinguish the lights and see what would happen. And sometimes in the darkness, you would hear the scratch of the chalk coming from inside the box.
That
And
would
when it
be-
was open, there was a message. Another way that they would use it is they would invite someone to write a question. They didn't have Post-it notes, right? They couldn't text the spirits. So they would have someone write a question for
Yeah, I
the
have
spirits.
Scam Likely call me all the time.
Inside there and close it all up. See, only the spirits can see it. It's just between you and the spirits. And that the spirits would maybe write an answer. They would channel the answer. They would make the answer known in some way. So that's a fun artifact. That's a piece of history there.
And I'm fascinated
Definitely.
with boxes
Oh,
anyway for some reason.
Love,
Schrodinger.
love boxes. That's where you keep your precious.
So where are you going to be next that somebody could reach out and actually go see
So,
what you're doing?
This Friday, I will be at Houston with the Houston Ghost Tour doing a spirit session and ghost tour. We bring you in and we ground you and shield you, open you just a little bit. You go experience the ghost tour. And if you've never done a ghost tour like that, you connect with it in ways that you never have before. And then we come back and we break out the tools and see what we can connect with. I'm also going to be with the Austin Horror Society for their trivia. I'm going to be playing some intuition games and doing some weird stuff with the audience.
And when will
That is
that
on
be?
the 11th, and I believe that is at the Spider House.
The Spider House, which is a
if
fun
you
place
look up
to
Austin
be.
Horror Society, they're all over there
All
right
over.
now. And then I believe the
Have to
next
go.
public event after that is going to be at the Kick Butt Coffee with the Chamber of Sequence. But I am absolutely happy to do something in your private home if you don't want to get out of your pajamas. I do
Stay in the
house
pajamas.
parties
This
and
man
all
does
that sort of
provide
thing.
amazing services.
Thank you.
Now, are you still with Museum of the Weird, or you were with them?
So I was there a lot, and then I backed away from there because it was getting complicated to work their schedule with mine.
Right.
And then one of the performers needed a little bit of relief. So right now I am there most Wednesdays, and I'll actually be there tomorrow night now that I think about it. And I give tours there. We don't have a lot of time to go very deep there, but that's a wonderful place to get a taste.
So you want, but then they can also contact you to have more information.
Absolutely,
to do
absolutely. And
different
if you
things.
want to do something that's more on the entertainment side, that's fine. If you want to go a little deeper down the rabbit hole, I am absolutely open to that. I love people to just find out what they want to connect with.
Well, I thank you for bringing your
Yes,
stuff. We'll have to have
Saul,
you
so
back
much.
again, because I know there's so much different sides, but the spiritual world,
This is a good time
really
for
interesting. So thank you. And then again, this is Saul Ravencraft. And I'm going to go over real quick to Jennifer again. We're going to just see one more time what she's going to be